every year there's a few select guests that I invite to come back and join us because they always have incredible, fabulous ideas. And today we've got one of them here, my first guest, Gary Lord. Hey, Gary, how are you?
I'm doing great, and thanks for asking me back again.
Always. You're always welcome here in the loft. You know that.
Thank you.
Because you bring such fabulous things. And
got some fun stuff now.
You've got some new stuff you're working on, right?
Real cool stuff.
Okay, well, let's take a peek at some of the beauties that you brought for us.
Well, a long time ago, I decided that I'm getting older. I don't want to work in the field all the time, so I started making handmade papers so I can make them and then people can just install them, no matter where you live or wherever, or you can install it yourself. So this is a whole new handmade paper line that I'm developing. And
Okay,
it's
so this
awesome.
is sort of like creating wallpaper, creating your own wallpaper.
Exactly.
Basically.
Out of craft paper. It's cheap.
Fabulous. All right, let's take a peek.
This first one's called Rawhide.
Which this is absolutely gorgeous.
And it's done with some materials called luster stone, and I crack the paper and then I stain it, and that's what creates all these creases.
Ooh, very cool. It looks like really like an aged leather. It looks
It
like
does.
It really does.
It's cool. I love it.
Okay, and
The next treatment is called Rouge Royale, and I have a variety of different ways that I've been doing this. You can use any stencil.
okay, wait a second. So this is the same exact technique, but in just a different color palette?
Exactly. Different stencils, perhaps, different color palette, but the technique's always the same throughout
is
the whole
gorgeous.
process, and that's the one we're going to show you how to do today.
Ooh, fabulous.
And it's great. Here's
Okay.
a bigger section of what it looks like, and you can, again, use any colors to go with your own decor, of course.
Right.
But let me go ahead and show you how we get started with that. First off, again, literally, it is craft paper.
So just a big brown roll.
Big roll. Yeah,
Okay.
we get a roll at the paper supply store. You
Okay.
can even buy it at the big box stores. They have craft paper there. So, you know, 3 foot wide, 4 foot wide, any size rolls that you want. And then you measure the length of the height of your wall, and then add 6 inches or so
I was just
because you
gonna
got to
say.
trim it off.
Oh, we have to trim it off. Okay, do we have to allow, is it going to drop at all with any of the product you're
It
using
shrinks
on
a
it?
teeny bit, but not much at all.
Okay.
So that said, but I have the craft paper. So the first step is I'm going to use this material called luster stone. It comes in a wide variety.
love the luster
I
stone.
love this stuff. It comes in a wide variety of colors, and you can see it's just real light and fluffy, and it has a metallicized finish to it. So I want to take that, and I'm going to take it on top of this blade, and I'm going to put it on like that, and then just scrape it all the way off. I'm not trying to create much of a texture. I'm trying to put it on and remove it off of the surface. So I would go ahead and complete that all around all of my pieces of paper.
Okay, that looks fabulous on its own right.
I tell you what, you could end up doing this. You could. They have 40 standard colors. You can intermix all these as well. Now, the other thing I want to do is I'm going to create a slight little texture on here. So I'm just going to let this just slightly grab
around.
and skip around on the surface. Now I can create as much or as little as I want. This would be my choice as I'm making it. But now once that step's done
that
and
is so
dried,
gorgeous,
isn't
though.
that pretty? Right? I mean, by itself, you could say that's it.
And that's what I'm saying. This is like good enough on its own right.
And this is what
I'd be
it looks.
impressed if I got that done. Come on now.
Well, you can. Now, this is what it looks like when it's dry. So the next step I want to do is I'm going to take a stain, and again, I could use any color. This is called an antique cherry. And I want to take this onto my roller, and you really don't need a lot of this because I'm going to take a squeegee and I'm going to move it down my surface with that squeegee. And what that'll end up doing is give this real pretty chatter movement, but it'll also set that luster stone back. And you watch just now, I'll take that squeegee, and then I chop it a little bit.
wow.
See how they do that?
Oh,
And I
very
drag
cool.
it. So I can create all kinds of movement in there by lifting it ever
that's
so slightly
awesome.
off of the surface.
Oh, that's
So
awesome.
I just take it and skip and drag.
Okay, but
skip
how
and
do you
drag.
decide on what colors you're going to mix together? Like, how did you decide to use the cherry over this?
Well, this is a fairly monochromatic pattern.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I wanted something that was a deep, rich red that was going with the fabrics in the room that I was working in.
Okay.
So I selected these colors, and I know I like this stain, and you can see how translucent that stain is. You can still see that luster stone
Yeah, we didn't
mandarin
lose the
red.
sheen at all.
No, you don't.
Okay.
And that's what's so great is that shimmer of the luster stone peeks through that stain, which is beautiful. So I'll add in, I'll show you a little bit more on here.
Now, if someone's selecting to do different colors to match their own personal decor at home, are there any kind of guidelines for rules to following colors or selecting colors together?
Well,
I mean,
there
or
is.
can they play around a little?
You can certainly play around, and I always recommend making a sample.
Right.
And try to pick things that would coordinate with the colors that you're using.
Okay.
You know, so it's color theory is pretty much the same no matter how you use it. You just want to have things that coordinate and flow together. And sometimes you look for contrast. But now, if I'm done with that one section, I'll go right back in again. I use my squeegee once more, and I chop it, and I move it down.
So you don't have to do the whole entire section all at once while
No.
it's still wet. You can come back in and work.
And even it doesn't have to be wet. This was still partially dry. Because I'm chopping it up, you're never going to see a lap line.
Oh, very cool.
Because I can come back in and add material.
And this is
take
going to
more
dry
off.
pretty quick, though, being on the paper anyway, right?
It dries very fast on the paper.
Okay.
And the nice thing about this is if I'm doing the big sheets, let's say I have a table like I'm working on here. I'll have a 3-4 foot wide piece of paper, and I'll do it like ironing a sheet. I'll do a section, kind of push it over to the side, come back, and I'll do the next section. Push it over the edge, come back, and do another section. So it just sort of falls down. You can work in your garage, in your basement. You could work in any area that you want.
You could even do this at the kitchen table.
You could, if you had a kitchen table big enough. Now, my wife would not let me do it at my kitchen table.
Well, no, that's because you have kids and they're eating at the kitchen table
Exactly.
or doing homework at the kitchen table.
So now this is that step done. Now, again,
awesome.
here is a finished look just by itself. You
Yeah,
don't
but
even
look
need
at how
to
it
do
dried,
anything
though.
else.
I mean, look how rich that is now.
Yeah, it gets a lot darker
it's-
as it dries.
It has more of a burnt effect to it. I mean, it really does. It looks like it's almost been burnt, like it's aged.
It does.
Very cool.
So now, once this is dry, I can put a stencil on top of it.
Okay.
And I could do, like, let's say maybe I had to do 15 sheets. And I would do all my 15 sheets. Now they're all ready, and I can come back and do my stencil.
Okay.
You can, of course, select any stencil that you want, or you don't even have to do a stencil. But I'm going to end up showing you how to do a stencil. Now, I'm taking a color, again, that will show on here. Now, imagine which brush is going to work quicker.
I'm going to say this one.
Oh,
Just a
you
guess.
got it. Okay, so now I want to take that, and I'm taking a metallic color again in a copper tone, and I'm going to put it onto my brush. We call this affectionately a Hairy Larry.
A Hairy Larry. We'll
Right.
take our Hairy Larry with some
So I'm
nice
going to take
shimmer.
my Hairy Larry, and I'm going to swirl that pattern and stencil it through and create my damask pattern on top of my paper. Now, this is so much easier to do a
And you're
damask
just
pattern on the
completely
paper.
lightweight. Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
versus being up on the wall.
It's a
Easier
nightmare
to
on the
stencil
wall.
on a flat surface than
Right,
a wall.
this is so much easier, and my repeats are so easy too. And you just lift it off, and there you have it.
Absolutely gorgeous. Gary, let's take a look really quick at this pattern in a room.
Okay?
Absolutely beautiful.
Thank you.
Great.
It's a great finish.
It's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing it with us today.
Thank you.